We're on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Amalei Rav Achabrei de Rava, about 8 lines up from the bottom. Amalei Rav Achabrei de Rava le Rav Ashi. Biyad mamish samchanle. This that we said. So we said how many people are needed to be samech. We just brought that there's 2 types of smicha. We had previously been talking about the smicha of resting your hands on the egla arufa. I'm sorry, the par helm davar shel tzibur, and now the Gemara pivoted to talk about the smicha, which you have to hand down from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yeshua, which goes down through the generations to the Dairis of being authorized to be a mumcha, to be an expert, basically to be a rav, to be a dayan. So the question is, how do you do this technical? We say you need 3 people to do smicha, to give smicha. Does it mean you mamash have to be saimach? It's called smicha, right? Smicha means placing hands. Does it mean that when a dayan appoints someone else to be a dayan, he has to literally put his hands on him? Amalei, no. Smechan le bishma, kari le rebbe. Because it means he's saimach him with his name. He depends on him. He calls him a rebbe. V'yavale reshus l'meidin dine knossos. And he gives him reshus to be done dine knossos. The reason why the point is about dine knossos is because we're talking about in Bavel. In Bavel, as we saw earlier in the Masechta, the Chachamim did not require mumchen for regular dine mamanis because of leitinol dalas b'fnei love, and it would make it difficult for people to borrow money if everyone who lent money knew that they would have to find mumchen to be done on the din. So they just said it has to just be a bezdin of even of hedyatis or experts who are not who don't have smicha. So we said that you need 3. We just brought this brisa that said smicha usmichas keinem begimel. The smicha of being saimach on a dayan has to be with 3. So in fact, is it true that 1 is not enough? We have to remember to good Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba Shmai, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. If not for him, the halachas of the dine knossos would have been forgotten by the Yidden. In fact, the Gemara nishtachu, why would it be forgotten? Nigrasinu, open up a Gemara and learn them. Why did you need him to stop it from being forgotten? Ella batlu dine knossos mishal. If not for him, it would have been batal. There wouldn't have been an ability to be applied dine knossos, like we just said, because you need mumchen. And he was the person who saved smicha, that you could be saimach. He was the one who kept the chain of being saimach. The only person who could give smicha is someone who himself got smicha. So if the chain ever gets broken, there's no way to continue it. That's what happened in Klal Yisrael. Even though there was, like I mentioned before, there was a major ideological question. I think at about the time of the Shulchan Aruch, when of Rabbi Yosef Kairei, I think in Feria and Eretz Yisrael, when they first re-established Eretz Yisrael, as we're going to see later on, the Gemara will talk about that smicha can only happen in Eretz Yisrael and not in Chutz La'aretz. And he wanted to say that if you can get most of the Talmidei Chacham in Eretz Yisrael, I think it's Rabbi Yaakov Beirav who said if you could get most of the Talmidei Chacham, you could re-establish smicha. I mean, make a Sanhedrin. I think it was Negei Legabi putting into place Yovel, different things. But in any case, he said, if not for Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara says, if not for Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, the smicha would have been lost. Shepam achas gazra malchus harusha gzeir al Yisrael made gzeir shekol hasaymech yahareg. Whoever gives smicha to someone else will get killed. While halanismach yahareg, whoever is makabel smicha will get killed. Ve'ir shesaymchim ba ticharev. At any city that allows a smicha to take place in it will be destroyed. Utchumen shesaymchim hen yakru. and the entire tchum around that city will be uprooted. Ma asar Yehuda ben Bava. What did Yehuda ben Bava do? He went between two large mountains, a place that wasn't easily to be found, and in between two cities, he was far away from these two large cities, and he was outside of the Tchumim, between Usha and Shafram. The Samach Sham Chamisha Skenim. And it was so he gave smicha to 5 Skenim, Elohim, Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, Reb Yosef, Reb Elazar ben Shamua. Reb Avia Mosef Afram Nechemia. Reb Avia says, in addition to those 5, was also Reb Nechemia. Given Shekuru Ve'im Bahen, once the government became aware of this, Amulhen Beni Roitzu. He told them all, run away and I'll stay. Amulei Rebbe Matahei Alecha. He said to Yehuda ben Bava, what's going to be with you? You're going to remain here. I'm going to stay like a rock that can't be turned, an immovable object. He didn't leave there until they pierced him with 300 spears, of metal. They made him like a sieve. I didn't see why he felt any of this was necessary. I don't know why he didn't run away as well. I guess he felt that if they didn't get something, they would go chase down where everyone was. He wanted to let them let out their frustration on him. So, but in any case, the question is that Yehuda ben Bava, it seems, gave the smicha by himself. This is all a long way of asking the question: why do we say we need 3 if we see Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava did it by his own? So tomorrow, Yehuda ben Bava Yehuda ben Bava had others with him. That they weren't mentioned. Since Rabbi Yehuda was so chashav, it wasn't necessary to mention who was with him. They were just his helpers, but he was the main character. But the Gemara of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Samchei, is it true that one of the 5 people that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave smicha to was Rabbi Meir? Is it true that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava was the one who gave him smicha? Amar Rabba bar Bachan, Amar Rabbi Yechon, Kol Omer Rabbi Meir, Lesamchu Rabbi Akiva, Eine Ele Toya. Anyone who says that Rabbi Meir got smicha from someone other than Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva didn't give him smicha, is mistaken. So Gemara, Samchei Rabbi Akiva v'lo kiblu. No, it's true. Rabbi Akiva gave him smicha, but it wasn't makubal. He wasn't sufficiently senior for people to take it seriously. Samchei Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava v'kiblu. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave, and they were makabel, which is very strange to us. So we have the picture that Rabbi Akiva was the biggest goyin, but I think it was just his seniority. He wasn't as senior as Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Sagt the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, ain't smicha b'chutz la'aretz. There's no smicha in chutz la'aretz. Ma'in smicha. Ilem lo daini dine knasas klal b'chutz la'aretz. If you mean to say that there's no din knasas, that means a smicha that someone got is not going to be effective in chutz la'aretz, and you can't be dan dine knasas therefore in chutz la'aretz. But Tananzan had no heges bein ba'aretz bein chutz la'aretz. We know not just dine knasas, but even a Sanhedrin, which requires obviously mumched and a Sanhedrin over here in this context means a bezin of 23. The bezin of 71 is only in Beis Hamikdash, but the Sanhedrin of 23 to be done dine nefashos can take place in chutz la'aretz. So certainly you have mumched that are able to be done. If they're able to be done dine nefashos, they could also be done dine knasas. So that's not what it means when we say ain't smicha b'chutz la'aretz. Ela deloy samchina b'chutz la'aretz. It means to say you cannot be saimech, cause someone to become to give smicha in chutz la'aretz. In fact, the Gemara pshita. So sagt the Gemara pshita saimchim b'chutz la'aretz and ismachim ba'aretz. Ha'amrin and deloy. If someone is giving smicha in chutz la'aretz, and the person who he's trying to give smicha to is in Eretz Yisrael. So we said you cannot give smicha in chutz la'aretz for someone who's in chutz la'aretz. So certainly you cannot give while you're in chutz la'aretz for someone who's in Eretz Yisrael. You have on top of the fact that The main place that we look at to determine of whether you're allowed to do smicha is where the person who's giving the smicha is, and this has an additional demerit. It has a second problem, that it's also the person who you're giving smicha to is not together with the person who's giving smicha. He's in Eretz Yisrael. So if we said that you can't give in Chutz La'aretz, certainly you cannot give in Chutz La'aretz for someone who's in Eretz Yisrael. What if it's the other way around? If the person is in Eretz Yisrael, the person who's giving the smicha is in Eretz Yisrael, and the person who's trying to give smicha to is in Chutz La'aretz, which essentially boils down to the way the most Pashup Pshat in the Rishonim, what Rashi brings, is it's essentially a question: can you give smicha to someone who's not in the country with you? Because you can give smicha in Eretz Yisrael, and the question is: can he give to someone who's outside of Eretz Yisrael, even though the person is not with him? Zaktamara Tashma, the Rav Yochanan have a mitzvah or the Rav Shama bar Abba, do have a gabayu do lismchay. Rav Yochanan really wanted to give smicha to Rav Shama bar Abba, but he couldn't because he wasn't with him. Rav Shimon ben Zirud b'chad the Emei umanu v'Yonasan ben Achmoi. Rav Shimon ben Zirud and one of his people who was with him, one of his people, which was Rav Yochanan ben Achmoi, v'Amri la v'Yonasan ben Achmoi v'chad the Emei umanu Rav Shimon ben Zirud. The one who was with him, he was saimach, and the one who wasn't with him, he was not saimach. So in any case, you see from these examples that one cannot give smicha to someone who is not present, and therefore, if someone's in Eretz Yisrael, he cannot give smicha to people who are in Bavel. Smicha has to be with the person present. Zok the Gemara. Rav Chanina and Rav Hoshia have a komishtakid Rav Yochanan le mismachinu. Rav Chanina and Rav Hoshia had a chukah that Rav Yochanan should give them smicha, and it was never working out. Rashi says it didn't work out because he didn't have people with him. He needed three, and they never had an opportunity when there were three other smuchin that could join in to give smicha.
What's mishtaket?
Mishtaket means they wanted. They had a chukah. They desired. Have a kometstar tuva. They were very upset about it. Amrulay, he said to them, Mar, don't be upset. Anan with the base. I'm sorry, he wanted to give to them smicha, and it never worked out. Amrulay nitztar mar. They said to Rabbi Yechon, don't be upset that you're not having the opportunity to give us smicha. Good morning. The anan with the base Eli kasina. We are from the children of Eli Akayin. If you remember from Navi, his children went off, did something wrong. The Gemara is about exactly what they did wrong. They stole the karbanas. They did something with the woman who brought the karbanas. But in any case, they did something wrong and they got a klala. And that part of the klala was, as we're going to see, that their children can never get smicha. How do we know that the children of Eli, their descendants, cannot get smicha? There shouldn't be a zaken in your house. This was said about Beis Eli kol hayom. My zaken, what does zaken mean? Ilay zaken mamish. If you say it means that they're not going to reach old age. Anyone who increases in your house, who gets to an older age, they're going to die as men. Meaning when they reach adulthood, they're going to die. So we already have a different pasuk that says that Beis Eli, they have limited lifespans. So we wouldn't need La'yeh Zaken Beisecha to reiterate that. Elo Smicha. So when it says La'yeh Zaken, it must mean that there's not going to be a Zaken, meaning someone who's going to get Smicha. So Beis Eli is precluded from getting Smicha. So therefore, Rav Chanina and Rav Hoshia told Rabbi Yochanan, don't be upset that you couldn't give us Smicha because we're not allowed to have it anyway. Rav Zera have a mimter lemismechei. Zera would hide from those who would try to give him smicha. We're on Yudalid Amin Aleph, 6 lines down in the wide lines. So he would hide from the people who come in to give him smicha. The Amr of Elazar la'olam havi kabel v'kayim. A person should always be makabel, and that will keep him. What if I have a kabel b'kaim? I don't remember how this works. Have a kabel ofel b'kaim. If you keep away from Rabbanus, if you keep yourself in the shadows, in the corners, in the darkness, then you'll stay longer. You'll survive longer. So that's why he tried to avoid becoming a rav. Since he learned this other memra from Rabbalaz, that anyone who gets a promotion to Gdula becomes a rav, he gets mechila and all his avainas. Emtzile anafshe. He made himself available. He said that that's worth it. Kisamchua l'Rav it's strange Gemara, right? Because he said, what happened to the first thing? The two things seem contradictory. I guess the point is if someone never did any Averis that he has to get a Mechila for, it would be Kedai to hide away from Rabbanus. When they gave smicha to Rav Zera, they sang the following song: like kachal v'lei sharak, not makeup and not the face painting, v'lei pirchas, and not hair dyeing. He doesn't have any of these things to make himself more attractive. Biyalas chen, and he still is attractive. They sang this song talking about the attractiveness of Rav Zera. I guess that it's shown from his face, his gadla shown from his face, without any artificial help. So it means without Botox or plastic surgery either. Ki samchua l'Rab Ami or l'Rab Asi. When they gave smicha to Rav Ami and Rav Asi, sharolei hachi. This is what they sang: Kol min din, whoever, anyone like this, samchu lanu. They should become. We want people like this to become musmachin, to be rabbanim for us. Leitismechu lanu. But however, don't give smicha to for us. Loi misar mitin, v'loi misar misin. So Rashi has taichas for these things. Misar misin is people who change their mind. Lashon, Rashi says, Lashon havchonim, k'moisaris hamikra, misayfa l'roishe. That we don't want the people who switch things around. And misar timin is like a lashon samarta klemisha ein noisin tam hagen l'devreim, people who don't explain themselves well, something that's worn out. Va'amri la loy mechach misin. We don't want people who are chaimis, who chamas is stealing. People who are going of das. They don't want to tell. They tell us halacha, but they don't tell us the reasons. The loy mitur misan, and Rashi says on mitur misan, that's my favorite one. Loy yisparish. I don't know what that means, but it means something. Someone who's mechusser in the giving over of Torah. When a Ravo would come from the Beis Medrash to the house of the Caesar, Nafki Matronisa the Bekesa, the woman of the house of the Caesar, would come out of Misharian land. They would sing for him, Rabba Da'ame Medaberna the Umsa, the Rav of the nation, the leader of the Kahal, Putzina the Nahira, his face shines, Brich Masyach L'Shalom, the place that he comes from should get Shalom. To continue the Gemara.
It's really strange.
Well, all these singing, these songs that people would sing, talking about the physical.
Yeah, but it puts him in jeopardy. He's coming in front of a Caesar who's very likely would be jealous of those that type of praise.
Yeah. Well, right. I guess he was very. He was well known in the house of the Caesar. Yeah. The whole thing, don't you think it's strange that there's so much praise of the physical attractiveness of the Rabbanim? Each one of them, it sounded like it was saying. Well, yeah, I guess it was saying that their faces shined. You could see the regalness. That they looked like chashuva people. But it's strange that would be the emphasis. I guess that's what the Hamayinam was saying, what the Hamayinam sang. It wasn't necessarily what that was what they saw. It wasn't the real praise of them. Because we keep on talking about what the people sang and what the woman in the Beit Caesar saw. It wasn't Jews. It was the Goyim.
Right.
Yeah. Tana Rabban. So anyway, the Mishnah continues. If you remember, we had a very long Mishnah that we started the parak, the Masechta with. So one of the next thing that we said is Arifas Egla B'Shloisha. That means, right, when you have a dead body and you don't know where he was coming from, you have to measure. There's a whole ritual that has to be done. And part of the ritual is you have to go see which city is closest. Tanarabban v'yatzu zkenecha, the zkenim go out. So we said in the Mishnah that you have to have 3 zkenim go out. Tanarabban v'yatzu zkenecha, the zkenim go out, v'shevtecha, zkenecha, v'shevtecha, and they judge. So Zaktamar, zkenecha, shnayim, shevtecha, shnayim, ve'en bezin shakum, v'sipin alein oidecha. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned the Mishnah had 2 things. It said Legabi Smicha and Legabi Egla Arufa. We had a machlekes for Shimon and Yehuda whether you need 3 dayanim or you need 5. So now we're saying the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. So we darshan Skenecha is 2 and Sheftecha is another 2, and you can't have a bezdin shakal. You can't have an even amount. Somebody can like Echad Harekan Chamisha de Rabbi Yehuda. That's where Rabbi Yehuda gets that you need 5 for Egla Arufa. Shimon is Skenecha Shnai Vein Bezdin Shakal Misivin like Echad Harekan Shleisha. He leaves out Sheftecha, he just darshans Kenecha. Rav Shimon hay Sheftecha mayav. What does Rav Shimon do with the Sheftecha? That you need from the Sanhedrin Hagadol. That this is not just any person. You have to mamish get from the Sanhedrin Hagadol, the people who are appointed to the 71 in the Lishkas Hagazis to go out and measure which city is closest. So Yehuda, even though he says Sheftecha to tell you 4, and then you'd say Ein Bezin Shakal, so he doesn't have Sheftecha to tell you that you need from the Bezin Hagadol. So he says from the fact that could have said Mizikne, and the fact that it says Kenecha, he learns out that it has to be from the Bezin Hagadol. Rav Shimon Zikne Havamina Zikne Ashuk. Rav Shimon says, if it would have said Ziknei, I would have said from the Ziknei Ashuk. The Ziknecha is to tell you that it has to be from the Sanhedrin. Because of Ziknecha, Avamina, Sanhedrin, and just Ziknecha would have told you maybe just from the Bezdin of 23. How do you know from the Sanhedrin of 71? Because Rachmano Shveitecha. So if Shimon needs Shveitecha to tell you Sanhedrin Hagadol, he says Ziknecha would have just told you a Bezdin of 23. So that's why he doesn't have Sheftecha to tell you another 2 to get you to 5 dayanim. So Sheftecha miyuchadim shebesheftecha. Rabbi Yehuda Gomer ziknei maybe samchu ziknei eda etzidem. So the Gemara says einachanabi. So Rabbi Yehuda, how's he going to know? Rav Shimon is right that you need ziknei's kenecha to tell you first from the Bezdin HaKatan and then Sheftecha for the Bezdin HaGadol. He says, no, we learn at ziknei. He learns out from ziknei, from Gzeira Shava, from the ziknei Aida that we said, legabi parhalim davar, that it has to be, the smicha over there has to be from the Bezdin HaGadol, from the Bezdin Sanhedrin Hagadol, so too over here it has to be from the Sanhedrin Hagadol. So Gemara Yalav Leilav Kulam Mehasam. Like we said before, if Shimon and Yehuda had the same achloikus before, legabi the paralim davar, that whether you need 3 or 5. So once you're learning out that you need from the Sanhedrin Hagadol, let's also learn out that you need 5 according to Rabbi Yehuda, who's learning it out with a Zeir Shava. Ella. So we have to reject. We have to give up on the Gzeir Shava. It must not be this Gzeir Shava. Elavav v'shvatecha leminyana. Rabbi Yehuda says the extra vav of ushvatecha, it says shevtecha, from the fact it says ushvatecha, even though we don't have the extra zikne, like we said, we need that to tell you Sanhedrin Hagadol, but the vav tells you an extra 2. Rav Shimon vav leidarish. Rav Shimon doesn't learn vav, so therefore he's left with only 3 dayan. In fact, the Gemara, if you're going to say the vav is coming to tell you an extra 2, v'yatzu el me'ata v'yatzu shnayim umadu shnayim. Let's do another 2 from the extra vavs of v'yatzu. Right? It says v'yatzu skenecha shvatecha, and then the pasuk continues umadu al haarim. So there's 2 extra vavs over in those words. Rabbi Yehuda Harei Tisha. According to Rabbi Yehuda, those two vavs will be an extra 4. That should get you to 9. Of Shimon Shiva, that should be an extra 2 on his 3. Should get you to 7. The vav of the yatsu is to say that the bezdin themselves has to go out. They can't send out shluchim to measure. They have to measure themselves. Umad do that they measure shafilu nimsa ba'alil le'ir, even if it's found immediately outside of the city, right next to the city. You have to make a physical measurement. You can't just say this is only a mile from one city and 5 miles from the other. So we know it's clearly closer to one. You still have to take out the tape measure and measure. I don't even know. I just wonder, like, how did they? I guess they did a measurement. They took a stick that was an amma long and they would turn it over and over. Right? You didn't have a tape measure. You didn't have surveys, so they had to make a physical measurement. I guess a rope, right? They used a long rope, but it had like a mile long rope. They used a bunch of ropes. They measured over and over. It's strange to me, like the idea, like we have lasers. You know, you can do a survey.
It's just very recent.
Yeah, it just seemed right. I guess it's not so hard, right? George Washington was a surveyor. He took out ropes and he would measure things like that. Zoktama, Masnisen deloiki haitana. This Mishnah is not like that we said that the machlekes Shimon of Yehuda, whether you need 3 or you need 5 for the measurement of the Egla Arufa. That's not like this other Tana. The Tanya, Belazim Yaakov Aimer, Biyatzus Keinechu Shvaitecha, the same pasuk Darshans Keinecha Zu Sanhedrin. This time refers to the Sanhedrin, Shvaitecha Zu Melech V'Kayin Gadol. That in addition to the people, these the Bezdin going out, you also need the Melech and the Kayin Gadol to go out to participate in this measurement for the Egla Arufa. And there was no mention of that in our Mishnah. We didn't say anything about the Melech and the Kayin Gadol. So clearly, Belazim and Yaakov is being chaylik on our Mishnah. Our Mishnah doesn't agree that you need the Melech and Kayin Gadol. Melech l'chsev, Melech ha-mishpat yamad. It's we see that a Melech is involved in Mishpat, and somehow the Gemara knows, Belazim and Yaakov knew that was referring to the Egla Arufa. And Gadol said, "V'basal ha-Kayin malviyim el ha-shayfet." So you say the Kayinim, referring to the Kayin Gadol, also associated with Mishpat. So that refers to that he has to participate in the Egla Arufa. So that's clearly a distinction between Belazim and Yaakov and our Mishnah, whether you need the Kayin Gadol and the Melech. Ibailu. But there's another question. Belazim and Yaakov, B'chad Polig, does he only argue on what we just said about whether you need the Kayin Gadol and the Melech? Maybe he argues on the whole Mishnah that we said over here. Rav Shimon and Yehuda argue about whether you need 3 or 5. The Melech, the Kayin Gadol pligi, he only argues about the Melech and Kayin Gadol. But Sanhedrin, Ikar Rabbi Yehuda, Ikar Rabbi Shimon. But Lagabi taking the Dayanim from the Sanhedrin, he holds either you need 3 or you need 5, like the Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Sanhedrin Nami Polig. Or maybe even argues on Lagabi the need to have Dayanim. The Amakula Sanhedrin Beinin. Do you need the entire Sanhedrin to go out? The entire Sanhedrin Agadol to go out and make the measurement. Rav Yosef Toshma, bring you right. Motzana base Pagi. So this is talking about the din of a Zaken Mamre, a Zaken who the Bezdin, the Sanhedrin made a psak, and one of the members of the Sanhedrin refused to accept the psak, and he paskin keneged what the Sanhedrin decided. The din is he gets misa. But it's only in those specific cases. If someone's part of a bezdin of shalish and two's passing one way, and the other one said, "I'm not being nachas to your psak," there's no misa. He's just overruled. But if a member of the Sanhedrin goes against the Sanhedrin, that specifically has the din of misa. So what happened if the bezdin, instead of being in the lishkas hagazis in Yerushalayim, the Sanhedrin wasn't in its normal seat? It was in Beis Pagi, which is an alternate place where they would meet, or they were there for, as we're going to see, for some other reason. The Himra lane, and this Yached, this single Zaken, were rebelled against them. They refused to accept their psak. I might say that his rebellion would be treated as a rebellion, legabi the din of Zaken Mamre, and he would get misa. It's only when they go up to the place, Elamaka, meaning to the Lishkas Agazis, to their normal place of sitting, of the Sanhedrin sitting in in judgment. That tells you that you only have the din of zakan mamre in the proper place. So Zak the Gemara.
How's that answer the question?
We didn't get to the question yet. We didn't get to the. I just lost my place from that sneeze. The Nafa Kama. So how many went out to this base Pagi? Elam and Mixas, if you'll say only some of the Sanhedrin went to the base Pagi, and that's who he disagreed with. How do we know that the fact that he's not going to be chayiv over there is because it has to be in the makkah? Maybe the reason why he can never be a zaken mamre in the base Pagi if it's only part of them, because you never know what the others would pass. Maybe they would agree with him. Ela pshita dinafa kulo. It must be that they all left. Lamai. So why would the whole Sanhedrin leave? If you say it's that's the way it is. They decided the heating in the Lishkas Hagados was not sufficient. They wanted to go to Beis Pagi because it had better. They just felt like it. They wanted to go for their summer home to Beis Pagi. It can't be. They don't have. It's not a optional. But Siv sharecha agan hasar al yechsar hamazak. That your shrara, the ruling should be in the agan hasar, basically in the middle of in the center of the guf, meaning al yechsar hamazak. You shouldn't dilute the mazak. Is they would dilute wine by adding water. You shouldn't make it too diluted. In other words, but the pasuk is darshan to tell you that the Sanhedrin has to be in their place of in the Lishkas Hagados, where the place where they're appointed to be, and they're not allowed to leave it optionally. So there must have been a reason why they left. Ela pshita lidvar mitzvah. So if the whole Sanhedrin went and picked themselves up to Beis Pagi, there must be a reason. What's the reason? Hechi dami, lavo mendidas agla Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. So we get. So our question was: does Rav Elazar ben Yaakov require a whole Sanhedrin for the measuring of the Egla Rufa? So the Gemara wants to prove from this din that was saying we proved that it must have been the whole Sanhedrin moved to Beis Pagi, and we know that now let us stam go, so it must have been for a reason. And the only reason we could think of is for the Egla Rufa. They all went to judge the Egla Rufa, which they're required to do. And so this you see Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, they're going like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Amakul Sanhedrin. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah hold you only need 3 or 5. So only Mandamu we know who possibly could hold you need the whole Sanhedrin is Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and that's the reason why they left. Amalei Abaya says no. Abaya disagrees with Rabbi Yosef. Back in the Mishnah, we said another thing that the Sanhedrin is needed for, the Sanhedrin Agadol, is to add on to the Yushalayim or to add on to the Azaros of the Beis Hamikdash. So maybe they left the Beis Hamikdash, they left Lishka for those reasons, and then they stopped in Beis Pagi to be Dana Din. And that's a different mission, because it's not Emes even Aliyah Azaros, Ela Betin Shel Shiva B'Yachad. So that was the reason. So you don't have a raya that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is Chayla. Tanya Kavas Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef, however, that's Abaya's teretz. Rabbi Yosef doesn't agree with that. He says Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says you need a Sanhedrin Agadol for Egla Rufa. So bring a raya. Motzon Beis Pagi. Back to this din of the Zaken Mam, right? If he found them in the Beis Pagi v'Himra, and that's where he disagreed on the Sanhedrin. So we have a brisa that said specifically that the Sanhedrin went out for judging for making the measurement of the Egla, or to be Meisav al De'ir Val Azara. So this brisa says specifically that there is a Manda Amar who holds that the Sanhedrin has to go out not just for measuring the Azara and the ear, but also for the Medidas Egla Rufa. So that must be Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov who holds that you need the entire Sanhedrin. So the Gemara. Neter Avaya Ma'aser Sheni she'ein dam of Yeduin b'shloisha. We said in the Mishnah, right? Neter Avaya is the 4th year of a fruit tree. In the first 3 years, it's arla, it has to be disposed of. You can't eat it at all. But the 4th year, it has to be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten in Yerushalayim. And Ma'aser Sheni is 4 out of the 6 years of Shemitah, it has to be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten. So, but it's very hard to carry all the produce. So the Mishnah, so the din is that you can be paid it, you can take that fruit that's supposed to be brought to Yerushalayim, and the owner can give money and take the money to Yerushalayim instead of be paid the fruit and then bring the money to Yerushalayim. But whatever you have, our Mishnah said, that there's no set market price for that fruit. B'shloisha, you need a bezin of shloisha to determine how much the fruit is worth. The produce. Tanarabban. Ezu ma'aser sheni she'ein dam b'vidun. What is this mysterious produce that you can't determine the price? So perish shehikiva v'yayin shehikrim u'moy shechlidu. It's talking about fruit that got that rotten, or wine that crusted, it got thickened, or money that corroded. All these things don't have a set price, and therefore you need a bezin. You paid it with 3 lekuchas. Rashi says it means 3 merchants. It doesn't have to be mumchen. There's no mention of mumchen for this. This is not knossos that you need mumchen. So you just need 3 people who are experts, people who buy and sell all the time. But you can't take people who are total laymen who have no idea. Afilu nachri, and it could be even a guy. It does, because it's just making a determination of how much this is worth. It could even be one of the owners. One of the 3 is the owner, because this is not a real dintira. This is an estimation. What if you have 3 people who all have the same kind of rotten fruit that they have to evaluate, and they all put it into one basket, and they're going to be the 3 people who are going to judge? We said you could have 1 bailam, but can you have 3 bailam? Once you have 3 bailam that are all the only ones judging, likely they're going to give a very low value to it, so they won't have to be paid it for so much. Tashma ishu shtei nosher paid in ma'aser sheni. A man and his 2 wives can even be the ones to evaluate this type of produce. So you see, a man and his wives, they all their money, they all have a joint checking account. He's entitled to all of it's all essentially one owner. Bas Abba Surah. Like a partner or Goldman Sachs, she has her own business, and she says, "I'm not interested in the Maisi. I don't want my Maisi Adayim to go to you, and then you'll give me Mazonis. We're going to have separate bank accounts." So maybe that's the reason why they were able to judge it in that case, but maybe 3 owners would not be able to. Okay, we'll stop over here. Logie was the only one who appreciated my Goldman Sachs comment.